Senior Vice President of Enterprise Learning Solutions for Wiley Education Services, Jeremy Walsh.
Good morning. I feel like I'm being announced to the WWF. That was awesome. So my name's Jeremy Walsh. I work at Wiley, where I have the privilege of working with organizations each and every day to prepare future-ready workforces. And this morning, I've got to admit to you that I'm an 80s child. I'm the millennial that we often talk about. I am a fan of the 80s, and the 80s were special because they were a simpler time. And some of you here this morning might be saying, well, Jeremy, I've been working hard to repress everything about the 80s, and now you're going to bring it up. Don't worry, I only have 9 minutes, so we'll go quickly. But the 80s were a very simple time, a time when we didn't have a skills gap per se, a time when this was maybe the truest test of a person's aptitude. I've been thinking about bringing this back into our hiring process just to test people out, see if they're going to fit the role okay. This was the truest test. If you could figure out the Rubik's Cube, you were instantly deemed the neighborhood genius. The 80s were also a time of wonderful fashion accessories like this, the fashion accessory of the slap bracelet. I know some of you are still carrying around your special slap bracelets today. I think this was the genesis of Pandora bracelets. If you weren't into fashion, how about the mixtape? It was an art. It was half art, half skill, the mixtape. And not everyone could get it just right. I explained to my children the other day how the mixtape worked, and they just don't even understand the concept of a tape recorder. They looked at me and said, "You're weird, Dad." If you weren't into music, you weren't into fashion, maybe you're a sneakerhead, and maybe you remember these beauties. With the simple push of a pump, your vertical jump was sure to increase at least 3 feet. It was incredible. And of course, the 80s were all about this guy, Michael Jordan, and that's why we wanted to all jump higher. And really the only skills gap of the 80s was really every NBA team chasing after this guy, trying to win their NBA championship while this guy was dominating. If you're not into sports, then maybe you're a movie buff. There were a lot of great movies in the 80s, and we all certainly will know this intergalactic cult classic hit. What am I talking about? That's right, Star Wars. Star Wars is maybe one of the best 80s movies or series of 80s movies that came out in that time. It's certainly the only one that has had the staying power to build an entire franchise. Now Disney's got whole entire theme parks around it. And so obviously I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I've even got my Star Wars watch on today. I'm a huge fan of the 80s, and that's why I was super excited when about 3 years ago, Netflix brought everything that was great about the 80s rushing back into pulp culture with their Netflix original hit series. Anyone know? That's right, Stranger Things. So you might be wondering, Jeremy, isn't this a close it conversation about closing the skills gap and about the future of education and the future of work? Why in the heck are we talking about the 80s? Well, honestly, I just like the 80s, so I'm sorry. In reality, though, I believe that the 80s has a lot to do with the way that we've been trained to think about this concept of the skills gap. It's really influenced the way that we've acted and behaved over the last 20 years. I believe that, at least in my opinion, that Star Wars and Stranger Things actually sums up part of the behavior that we've been acting on for quite some time that's gotten us into this predicament. You see, we're living now in a Spotify world, but many people still have mixtape skills. And we haven't changed the narrative of how we're going to tackle this problem. And it all started, at least in my opinion, way back in 1997. And that was the same year that Reed Hastings launched Netflix. Thank God for 1997. But it also happened to be the same year that McKinsey launched their first research report where the author, for the first time, mentioned a specific phrase called the war for talent. And the idea was that we were in such demand of knowledge workers that there was going to be a downward pressure and a huge competition to get the type of talent we need. And so the war for talent was born, and I actually like to refer to it as War for Stars, or Star Wars, if you get my joke today. And so we all went to work really hard, spending lots of money on recruiting, on staffing, investing in bigger offices, fancier titles, better benefits, anything we could do, pulling out every trick to get our hands on the talent that we wanted to get our hands on. Because we were told that it's a war for talent, and in wars there's winners and there's losers, and in most cases there's casualties, and it was a zero-sum game, so we went to war, and this is what we believed that we were doing. And for the last 20 years, many of us have woken up thinking that this is the world we live in, that there is some sort of battle going on for talent. But what if we were tricked? What if it was all a lie? What if that really isn't the case that we're living in today? And after all, why wouldn't we believe that we're living in a war? After all, today we are living in a time of unprecedented change where technology is kind of engulfing everything that we do. And the pace of technology change is touching each and every organization. Digital transformation, something that every organization and CTO is like, we got to do that. Digital fluency is something that every single position in our organizations today needs to have some level of digital fluency. We talk about AI. It's no longer a thing of the future. It's a thing of today, and we're going to see that more and more take over and be a part of everyone's jobs. We think about soft skills such as agility, learning agility, and adaptability and creativity, and we realize we don't have enough of those. And so, of course, it feels like we're in a war. Maybe it's the fact that 7.2 million people, 7.2 million jobs have gone unfilled for the last many, many, many months because we can't seem to find the talent to fill it. Maybe it's the fact that 6 million people are unemployed looking for jobs because they can't find the skills that they need to take these types of jobs. Or maybe if you're a CEO in the room today, maybe it's your fault. After all, CEOs are saying that finding the top talent is their #1 initiative, and 40% of them say that they're concerned because they can't find the talent they need. Or if you're an HR leader in the room, maybe it's your fault. Because in our latest Closing the Skills Gap report that Wiley released last month, 64% of HR leaders, that's actually needs to be inverse, 64% of HR leaders said that they can't find the talent they need, that there's a skills gap in their organization, and that it is making it difficult to compete, and most importantly, if this isn't war, I don't know what is, it's making it a downward negative impact on profitability. All that while stranger things are also happening in our world. Stranger things like us deploying the same strategy over and over, getting the same result, and looking at each other like, why did that not work? Things like hiring talent, losing talent, hiring talent, losing talent, the same cycle. Things that are very strange, like 41.4 million people voluntarily left their job. These are people that we want to stay employed at our organizations. 41.4 million of them left their job this year. That's almost, for perspective, a third of the full-time workforce in the United States, leaving their job when we want to keep them. The #1 reason they're leaving their job is because they want opportunity to grow, to learn new skills, to develop, to take on something new. What's stranger is that $617 billion is what this country spends in annual turnover. That number is expected to go to $800 billion in the next 4 years. Very strange. And then you contrast that with the strange thing of $87 billion being spent across training, upskilling, reskilling, all the institutional investment that our companies are making in taking individuals to the next level. And that's $6 billion less than we spent the year before. So we're spending less on the things that employees want to keep them around longer. Very strange. So in reality, it's no wonder that when you look at all these dynamics, of course we feel like we're fighting a war. Of course we feel like there is a war on talent. But what if for a moment we reframe the way that we're thinking about this? What if it's not really this dark and gloomy? Instead, it's a little more like Disney. And the future is a future of collaboration, of cooperation. If you've seen the movie A Beautiful Mind about the gentleman named John Nash, he even introduced a term, co-opetition, where competitors look at ways to cooperate. And they do this around cogs and widgets and all kinds of stuff. But why do we not do it around talent? I believe that the future does look more like this. It looks like AT&T and their Future Ready program, where they helped over 100,000 employees upskill who were going to be out of work if they continued down the path that they were, where they spent $1 billion and collaborated with Coursera, Udacity, and a bunch of university partners and made internal investments around career centers, all to help their workforce become future ready. Or maybe it's the things that we just heard from Ken at Amazon and the great work they're doing in their Upskilling 2025 program and launching Machine Learning University and in making all kinds of investments to make not just their workforce, but the entire workforce of this nation and the world more ready for jobs and careers of the future. Maybe it's Walmart and their Live Better You program that they launched last year in collaboration with several universities focused on helping their associates earn certificates and degrees and skills in medicine and in machine learning and many other in-demand skills. And they've already had 7,500 employees or associates take advantage and begin their degree program. This one is near and dear to my heart. I was involved with this one. Liberty Mutual started a program called Go for Code, where they helped hundreds of non-technical workers at their company move into technical jobs and become Java coders. And it saved the company millions of dollars in recruiting costs, but more importantly, it retained hundreds of years of institutional knowledge. It's been a huge success in their partnership with the Software Guild. And then one of my favorites is the Grow with Google program, where they launched their certificate in IT specialist. And so far, they've had 85,000 individuals take advantage of this certificate in partnership with Coursera, in partnership with several community colleges, and they also built a job network with hundreds of employers where you can get you can earn a job after earning your certificate in IT specialist. Now, what's interesting is if you check out the Grow with Google program, it tells a story about a lady named Melinda who was a hairstylist in a small city that had a huge downsizing because a manufacturing plant closed. She was a fan of the 80s and she needed to reskill, and she jumped right into this program. She found a new livelihood, and that's the opportunity that I believe the future holds. That when we begin to collaborate together, we begin to work together, interesting things can really happen. And so I want to leave you with a question. What can we do over the next 2 days, collaborating, communicating? How can we contribute? There's hundreds of organizations represented here today, and I believe that there's many, many great ideas for us to tackle and begin to pursue. There's not a silver bullet. No one has the answer, but we need to create what that looks like. And so I want to leave you with this thought. Wiley, this is my quick plug. Wiley has been around for over 200 years. When you talk about companies that haven't lasted long, we're not one of those. We've been helping companies and individuals transform and navigate these types of transformations for over 200 years. And so we're interested in working and partnering and collaborating with organizations like yours. And if there's an opportunity that you see for us to help you or for us to work together to do something unique, I would love to do that. Lastly, you can access our full Closing the Skills Gap report at skills.wiley.com. It's available for everyone here today. And I want to leave you with a famous 80s quote. If you're a Back to the Future fan, you'll know this quote from Doc. And he said, "Marty, the future is what you make it, so make it a great one." Let's make it a great one over the next few days. Thank you.